There seems to be an increasing battle in the courts for Southern Baptist and entities related to the Southern Baptist. And why is this? Why is there such a tug of war going on now? And there are some of these lawsuits that are taking place right now that are going to cause potentially long-term damage to the Southern Baptist Convention. And some are kind of hoping that that's the case, but I'm not hoping that's the case. I'm hoping that we see basically a resurrection and a revival go on within the convention, and that some of the things that are happening in the convention can be remedied, can be helped. Well, let's look quickly at some of these things right now, according to the reporting, basically, I guess you'd call it reporting of, I forgot, I stuck this in. Make sure and like and share and subscribe. It helps not only you to know when we're dispensing more information, but also it spreads it on YouTube and lets others know about what's going on the channel. So if you'll do that. All right. Enough of the commercial. According to the reporting of SBC Litigation, which is the handle on Twitter or X now, they have reported that there are multiple cases that are being tracked right now among the Southern Baptist Convention. And right now, there are 28 cases that are being tracked. Now, there are more than 28 cases that are actually being tracked, but right now, these are the ones that they're following. Here are the top 16 you notice here in a variety of different states, including the DOJ investigation out of New York, which is number one on the list. And then the last in the 28 list here, and you'll see several of those that are pretty well known as far as getting information out. Seals versus SBC in Alabama, Johnny Hunt versus SBC in Tennessee, McRaney and NAM, and then of course McLean Bible Church versus some of their members. So this is a huge problem right now for Southern Baptists and what is happening among Southern Baptists. Now, when we break this list down by state, I find this quite interesting as well. If you'll notice, the states that have these, Alabama 1, Arkansas 1, Kentucky 1, Mississippi 1, New York 1. North Carolina has 16 cases right now that are being tracked. Tennessee 1, Texas 2, South Carolina 3, and Virginia 1. Now, I would love to know if somebody can let us know why there are so many cases in North Carolina. I've heard several conjecture opinions as such, but we don't have any solid facts, at least I don't at this point, as to why there are so many more cases pending right now in North Carolina. So I would love to know that. Now, the most significant case of all these cases that really is going to impact potentially every one of those other cases and other cases that may be brought in the future is the case with McRaney, which is number 26 on that list. McRaney versus the North American Mission Board. We've covered this some on this channel as well as others have. Right now, this case is at the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. It's on appeal. Again, this is the second time before the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court. Now, let me tell you why this is so significant. The argument right now that is taking place is basically connecting all Southern Baptists, any group, entity, church, association, state convention, to be under one big umbrella, kind of like the Catholic Church or maybe the United Methodist Church or some other denominations of that sort. That's not the way Southern Baptists work. We have autonomy is the way we operate. Now, to clarify this a little bit, look at these quotes. These two quotes I'm about to give you are both from depositions that were done in this case of McRaney versus NAM. This is Barry Hankins, who is a Baptist historian, I believe at Baylor, and is well respected as a Baptist historian. And these are the two things that I want to bring out that he says about this particular case. He says, if NAM's interpretation of the First Amendment prevailed, every Baptist entity that cooperates in any way with the SBC would be put at risk. Secondly, he says, it is my opinion as a scholar of church-state relations in the U.S. that NAM's First Amendment defense in this case, if accepted by the courts, would actually undermine religious liberty rather than safeguard it. Now, that is of great danger, obviously, to any and all Southern Baptists in any organization. We're autonomous. Every one of our organizations, including all of our churches, operate independently. They make their own decisions. They determine exactly how they're going to operate, who's going to be in leadership. They have all those decisions they make within their own organization, not from some outside organization. Like with the Catholics, the things come down from the top and they determine exactly what is going to be happening, exactly how you're going to operate, what you're going to do. That's not the way Southern Baptists work. We're very autonomous. Now, let's track this case back just a little bit. Let's go back to 2017 when the case first was filed with the courts. Baptist Press had this article, and they released this in 2017, and this details NAM's response to the Will McCraney lawsuit. Note the last sentence of the second paragraph, which I've put here. It says, however, NAM denied interfering with McCraney's employment situation or any of his other business dealings and asked for dismissal of the suit. Now, notice some of the more recent filings they've had in various courts, November 2nd, 2018 and December 21st, 23. Their 10th defense was NAM had the legal right to interfere to protect its own economic and other interests. Now, let me pause here just to kind of put this in place so you understand if you're not familiar with what's going on. The accusation is that NAM interfered with the employment of McCraney at the Baptist Convention of Maryland, Delaware, and they threatened to withhold funds that were cooperative program partnership funds that had been agreed upon to be shared with the state to help with church planting, supporting staff, that kind of thing. And NAM threatened to withhold that if they didn't terminate McCraney, and several other things. There's a lot that goes into the case, obviously, but that's kind of the gist of it. So this first defense that they are using here at this point is simply saying they had the legal right to interfere. They had the right to interfere to protect their own economic interests or other interests. The 12th defense says NAM is protected by an absolute privilege with regard to any statements it may have published regarding the plaintiff, who is McCraney. 13th defense, NAM is protected by a qualified privilege with regard to any statements it may have published in regard to the plaintiff. And again, this is talking about the defamation charge that McCraney has made against the North American Mission Board in some of the threats, some of the things they've said, some of the things that have been said by President Ezell in the board meetings, executive meetings, things of that sort, as well as posting his photograph there at the reception area or the info area of the North American Mission Board and making sure folks knew that this person was not allowed to come in, that he was a threat to the organization. So the defaming of him in that sense is what is the accusation here at this point. Look down now at the defense number 16. The defense here simply says this. It simply says that an absolute privilege and or a qualified privilege is what is allowed here. So NAM is protected by an absolute privilege or a qualified privilege with respect to all decisions it made and or actions it took. Now, this is that's pretty extreme, but now understand these are quotes right out of the court documents that the North American Mission Board has filed. Now, in the latest appeal that's being made at the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court, I've pulled a couple of quotes from the transcript of that hearing, which was held on April 4th, Thursday morning, April 4th. And look first at this part of the transcript. This is the argument that is being made by Attorney Martin. Martin is one of the attorneys representing the North American Mission Board, and he said, the court said the right to organize voluntary religious associations to assist in the expression and dissemination of any religious doctrine and for ecclesiastical government of all the individual members, congregations, and officers within the association is unquestioned. He continues, all who unite themselves to such a body do so with an implied consent to this government and are bound to submit to it. But it would be a vain consent and would lead to a total subversion of such religious bodies if anyone aggrieved by one of their decisions could appeal to the secular courts and have them reversed. Now, the rebuttal to that sometime later, there was more said than just what I've listed for you in the transcript. But Scott Gant is the attorney representing Will McRaney, or the lead attorney right now representing Will McRaney. And look at what his response was to impart what you just saw. Gant responds, Mr. Martin seems to be suggesting that somehow because BCMD, the state convention, and NAM agreed to do some work together, that immunizes NAM from claims that Dr. McRaney on the notion, and he cites Watson for this notion of implied consent. Now, what he's basically arguing is that Martin, arguing for NAM, is basically arguing this is a governance issue. It's an internal issue. The court should not stick their nose in it because this is all internal to our church organization, trying to lump all of us together. And because there was what they call now a strategic partnership agreement between the BCMD and the North American Mission Board, they signed an agreement saying, hey, this is what we're going to share. Cooperative program dollars are going to be shared this way. NAM's going to help to fund a state missions director or church planter or whatever the agreements are. There's all kinds of things could be in that agreement. But whatever that agreement is, because the BCMD signed an agreement saying this is what we agree to, it creates an implied consent that the BCMD should be under the government of the North American Mission Board. So the governance that's taking place at the North American Mission Board should take precedence over anything else in that sense. And that's basically the argument. Now, understand, I'm not a lawyer. I can't give you all the legal definitions, but in all my reading and all my studying and all my listening to people who understand much more about this, this is the way it's being interpreted at this point. So that is not something that helps to defend the autonomy of the local church for certain. There's no question that it impedes what the local church should be able to do, and associations and state conventions. The problem is this starts bringing a connection between the North American Mission Board and anybody that they are connected with in any way, shape, or form. If your church or your church plant received money from the North American Mission Board, if this argument goes forward, what it basically means is that you would be subservient, I guess that's the right term, subservient to the governance, the approach, the desire of what's happening at the North American Mission Board. And everyone would be having to respond to that in some way, shape, or form. This could be taken to another organization, not just McRaney versus North American Mission Board. It could carry over into the Greenway case with Southwestern Seminary in Texas. It could carry over into abuse cases. If there's this connectionality, meaning that all of the parts of the organization are connected. Southern Baptists are autonomous in that each and every organization operates separately. But in this case, if they rule in favor of the North American Mission Board, the best I understand it, it would basically be saying that others are liable. So your church might be held liable because another church across the county or another part of the state or another part of the country, as far as that goes, is being held accountable for some type of an issue. Somebody maybe fell because of a loose handrail on a staircase, and they file because of poor maintenance or something of that sort. Something happens and they file because of poor supervision at a children's camp, whatever it could be. And they could go back and say, look, they're all related. They're part of the Baptist church. And incidentally, that's the phrasing that North American Mission Board has used repeatedly in these court documents. The Baptist Church, the Southern Baptist Church. They refer to themselves as the SBC Mission Board. What happened to the International Mission Board? I thought we had two mission boards, right? Well, that's not the way they are presenting it to the courts. Understand, the justices and the judges who have heard this at the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court, the Northern District in Mississippi, and the Supreme Court, when they look at this, they're not Southern Baptists. They don't understand our church polity, and they don't need to understand our church polity necessarily, because these things are not related to the theology of what we do. It's a matter of relationship and working together. And so it's one of those things that it's creating quite the tug of war, needless to say. Now, if we look again at those, all the different cases that are listed in the different states, when we see these cases, many of these cases could be impacted by a ruling in favor of the North American Mission Board to basically eliminate the autonomy of local churches. I can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but just from the few people that are in my circles of influence, I guess you could say, that I've heard from, many have said, hey, look, if the McRaney case falls and North American Mission Board wins out in that case, based on all the things they've said, based on the ERLC's submission to the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court before, where it said there's a hierarchy in the SBC, all these things have been put into the court document. They're forming a precedent in the court system. So if that's the case, many of these people are saying, hey, we're getting out. We're just not going. We can still worship God. We can do things that glorify God. We'll find another way to invest in missions. But what's happening is that means that we're losing and are going to lose more and more churches that just can't take this kind of corruption. And to be honest, North American Mission Board just blatantly, outright deceiving the court about the way we operate, just on the basis of they want to win. There's a problem with that, and that's a whole nother video to deal with that altogether. Well, that kind of wraps it up for us today. I hope that helps you to understand a little bit better about this tug of war that's happening in the convention right now with all these multiple cases that are happening. Just keep track of it. We'll try to keep you updated on some of these major cases as channel, and just let you know kind of what's happening and what the future holds as we're tracking particularly the McRaney-Nam case, but some of these others as well. We'll see you back next time.